One of the trickiest parts of running a business, pricing. So many solopreneurs get stuck here, either undercharging because they're afraid to scare people off or overcharging without clearly communicating the value that they deliver. But pricing is not just about numbers. It's about strategy, perception, and listening to your customers. Pricing, I feel like, is not just a problem for solopreneurs, though. It's a problem for everyone. Our local bodega recently raised the price of cherry Coke. But there's a bodega right on the corner that is still selling it at the old price. Rachel,
It's
what are they thinking?
what are they thinking? How dare they affect my vice? I mean, it's the same with coffee, right? Like I went somewhere yesterday, and it was like $4 for a black cup of
Oh,
coffee. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, what is this pricing world that we now live in?
it's insanity. It's like willy-nilly pricing.
Yeah. And it's almost like the gas station wars, right? Now they have to control that. So somebody needs to control the coffee and control the cherry Coke.
Welcome to Manage Chaos Podcast, where we give you the startup business rundown in less time than it takes for you to get to work. I'm Katrina Purcell.
And I'm Rachel Anderson.
And today we are talking about how to determine the optimal pricing strategy for your product or service. And let me tell you, charging 25 cents more than the store across the street is not it.
It's not it. It's not it. And
Now I have to bring a quarter with me. Like, keep it the even $2. Like, I'm not.
One. I'm not a change master. Like, do we even do that anymore?
Exactly. Like, who does that? So, okay, Rachel, let's start at the very basics. Why is pricing not just about covering your costs?
Yeah. So I feel like bigger businesses have done this for so much time that it's more complicated and less complicated for them. So for solopreneurs, really, a lot of them should start with a calculator. Just add up your costs, track what margin you need, which is like your personal salary, maybe, right? And then call it a price within reason. But there's a lot that you can learn from observing how other brands think about their pricing strategies and what it means to cover costs. A really great example, I think, is Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory. Love it. They have these like chocolate covered apples that are my absolute
Chocolate covered
favorite. Yes, there's a specific one, not that this matters, but it's like an apple pie apple and it has like white chocolate and caramel and cinnamon sugar. And let me tell you, I love it. I love it so much.
Sounds like my mom would say that sounds like a cavity waiting to happen.
Yeah. No, because you get that tart like Granny Smith under all of that. So really it's, a full glorious moment of satisfaction and delight. No cavities. Anyway, so Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory. So they are pretty consistent about their pricing model, which is that they adjust quarter over quarter what their prices are based on their ingredient costs and what it's actually taking to hold down a storefront, employ the people that work there, all these different things. So instead of just sticking with a flat sort of markup on their products across the whole entire board, they try pricing to actual margins and improve their profitability by being really flexible. And so I think a good way for entrepreneurs and startups to start thinking about it is that it is math. It is at the end of the day math, but it's also about the strategy behind the math and the perception of cost, which I have another great example if people stick around for a few more minutes about perception. But if you only look at the cost of what it takes for you to do something, then you're going to risk underpricing and undervaluing your product. So start with a calculator, but then make sure you have a strategy around what that price is and what it will become.
So my husband is obsessed with starting a coffee shop that has dynamic pricing where the board doesn't have static prices and the prices change based off of time of day. But you could potentially, if you go there often, buy at a lower price, like a couple weeks in advance.
Interesting.
So
almost
basically
like
like creating like a stock market, but for coffee. But anyway.
Yeah. I feel like that is such a New York idea. I feel like it would really potentially work there.
Okay, so let's take this back to sort of the basics for founders that are maybe just now realizing that they really actually should have had a pricing strategy or are just launching. What are the basics to consider to really think about pricing strategically, not just kind of setting a random price?
Okay. I'm going to make this as simple as possible so that people following can really this is the thing. So first you have to know your costs. Everything that is an expense, materials, labor, overhead costs, software, marketing, building, whatever your expenses are as a company and as a product is the cost. And this gives you sort of a baseline for, I can't go lower than this, right? But
Mhm.
just like car companies, they have a big markup, but they won't sell it to you for loss. So what is your can't go lower than this price? Also, the next step is understanding your value, which I think a lot of solopreneurs that I work with get really tripped up on this because they just want to be fair and have a good deal to get customers. And especially when you're starting up, you're like, I'll do anything for that customer, right? And there is some truth in that, but understanding your value directly connects into market. So if you're saying my overhead cost is going to be $1,000 lower than the lowest average of market, maybe that's not valuing yourself enough and the services you provide. So when you think about it, ask yourself, what transformation or convenience or solution am I providing? And price it based on that value as well as cost. I
Mhm.
think that that's a really important thing to kind of sit with as you're getting running. Now, with that, that means you have to do research on the market and competition. And you really need to know, it doesn't mean you have to fight with competition. I have some mixed feelings about people being like, we just have to be better than competition. Maybe you should just be better because you are better. But anyway, we won't go down that rabbit hole. You should
That's a
make sure
pass.
that you understand your market and competition. So what are others charging for the similar products or services? And make sure you're positioned within a reasonable range to that. And honestly, if it's way higher, then you should probably be looking at what's incorrect about what you're doing. Are you spending too much money in a stage where you should be lean? That's a good question to ask. So things like that. But frankly, most of the time I see people undervaluing their product or service. The next thing is that you need to know your customer. So that's one of the things we talked about recently, which is like MVP, minimal viable product, not most valuable person, minimal viable product. So what can you put into the world to validate that someone's going to pay for that and that somebody is actually having their problem solved by what you offer?
Right.
So that definitely has to be part of your pricing conversation and strategy. And then finally, you choose a pricing model and then you test and adjust it. So some common models are a one-time fee, a subscription, tiered pricing, retainer, bundles, freemium, ads within, whatever. There's
Mhm.
so many different ways that you can structure how profit and revenue come in that it really needs to be considered as part of all those other four elements of research, customer, value, cost.
Yeah, I find that a lot of companies sometimes really struggle with that competition part, right? Because they either are unaware or they feel like there's no direct competitor because they
Right.
have something, right? And so then they kind of discount or throw out the price and they find for someone in the market that could potentially be an actual competitor.
Yeah, and I think it's good to have competitors. It means that we get people that care about really making something better. I think of one really particular large software company who was the player in sort of all things productivity on the computer for a really long time. And now they have this full suite of products that people still buy, but they don't invest in making them better because their value, their differentiator is that they have it all in one. And as
Mhm.
long as they offer something, they're at the table to play, but they don't actually have to invest in making it better. So that's not real competition, right? And that's where I think having competition
Yeah,
fuels you to actually evolve and get your product
prove.
better. Yeah. And so it's helpful to know who to look at to say, okay, what do I need to do?
So, how can listening to your customers help to sort of shape your pricing strategy other than people just being, saying your prices are too high or not buying?
Yeah. Okay. So think if you've ever been frustrated by confusing pricing, or you're like, why is this piece of pizza like $5? I don't understand. It's just like this tiny little morsel. That's exactly the piece here that customers bring value to the table on how they feel about that price. And as emotional as it feels to say or sounds to say that you're looking at a feeling, those feelings really matter. We see it in housing all the time where, as you have your list, you have your like rationale, you're like, this is my budget, all these things. But at the end of the day, that's an emotional purchase. You want to feel like when you step into a home, you belong. And so with that, your customers are going to tell you when pricing feels too restrictive, out of step with the value, confusing, and brands that adapt to that feedback build trust and loyalty. So it's not a scary thing that customers are going to give you potentially uncomfortable or unwanted feedback. It's an opportunity for you to show them that they're a brand worth trusting. So a great example is the company And Pizza, which customers were like, oh, WTF, like this is way too much. We don't like it. It's too much for a pizza. And so they actually did a huge overhaul where they were like, great, well, then we'll set this specific price. I think it was like $10 last time I looked for any pizza. It's our basic, it's in the door. And then you get things on the cheaper side, and then you can build up from there. So they really expanded what we would look at as tiers and removed some of the strict limits or modeling to really hear the frustrations and adapt. And so that's a really great example of how you might use that customer feedback. And then the CEO himself responded and was like, yeah, you're right. And now they have people that are much happier, right?
It sort of makes me think about Chipotle and that ever daunting question of the guac's extra. Are you sure you want it?
Right. 100%.
Yeah,
It is
sure
the
about
guac
that?
though. It is so good.
So what can small businesses learn from brands that have already experimented and learned about pricing?
I think that you should make sure that you actually believe that pricing doesn't have to be permanent. I will say it's difficult when you come out the gate with free to then go to price. So I would say that's a very good question to ask of yourself if you have a strategy around how you're going to change and all those things. That's like a tricky one to do, but even that is not permanent. Prices change all the time. People change, costs of things change. It's great to adopt a very flexible attitude and regular questioning as part of your overall brand or business strategy of, is this still the right price? So test different models even as you're getting something set up. Is it better in a tier, or is it better as a subscription? Is it better to have a low entry to get people in and then have something that's restricted to add costs later? And then find a way to really give data to that strategy. I mean, it should be easy enough to start with, do people actually buy it, right? Like that is your most basic data to kind of be at. But if you get into side of this like AB mindset, which is more of like a digital mindset, where you put different options into the world and see what people choose, if that's, appropriate for you, then that's a great way to do that. Your first pricing model is definitely not going to be your last. I can say that with pretty good confidence. So start simple, test, evolve as your product and your customer base also evolve.
So pricing is a living strategy. It's part numbers, part psychology, part listening to your customers. This week, ask yourself, am I pricing based only on costs? Am I paying attention to customer reactions? Am I willing to experiment and adjust? That's how you find your sweet spot. One of the things that I know is that if someone immediately says yes after you've said the price, then might not be high enough. They might have been willing to pay more. Like you want that little wince before they say yes. So please subscribe to Managed Chaos Podcast on your preferred podcasting platform, especially YouTube, because we're watching those subscriber numbers. Comment and let us know what topics you would like for us to cover. We will see you on the next episode of Managed Chaos Podcast.
Outsourcing your US tech talent shouldn't be hard. With Pobble.io, we deliver high-quality teams on demand and provide huge cost savings to your business. Try it now at Pobble.io. Mention the amazing guys at Managed Chaos when you email us and get a free market data report. Email contact@Pobble.io.